the Israeli military defending its ground incursion into southern Lebanon, saying it aims to stop attempts by Hezbollah to infiltrate Israel. Also saying Israeli forces have been carrying out raids into southern Lebanon for months now. An IDF spokesman releasing new video footage this morning saying it shows Hezbollah's underground tunnels in Lebanon. Israel says it has destroyed many of them. These details coming just hours after Israel announced it launched a ground operation inside Lebanon. CNN military analyst, retired Army Major General James Spider Marks is joining us this morning. Thank you so much for being here. We're hearing about this ground incursion. Israel saying it is a limited ground incursion. What does that allow Israel to do as it's going in and out, trying not to keep troops on the ground for very long?
To define an invasion as limited is a priority before the bulk of this operation gets underway. It's a definition that's very imprecise. Look, the Hezbollah has a vote in how this thing unravels, right? So to describe it as limited is great, which means Israel hopes to be very precise in its targeting. They want to go after the infrastructure of Hezbollah. They want to go after storage locations. Look, they're looking for evidence that they can go to the International Criminal Court and say Hezbollah routinely positions its weapon systems in houses. They use that for storage. Not that anybody's going to care, but at least it gives the world an understanding of what Hezbollah is all about, if it's not already sufficiently clear. But I think it's important that what Israel's trying to do is they're trying to push Hezbollah north of the Litani, which we understand. However, if they can do that, and the UN Security Council resolution indicates that it should be done, hasn't been enforced, still a large percentage of Israel is still under the range of those ballistic missiles. So it's a good start. But Israel would really like to push, beyond the Litani. Look, they're flushed with victory from Gaza. They've got the capacity to do it. The challenge is they don't want to get stuck. And that's why they're describing this thing up front as a limited incursion. They want to hit some very precise locations, push as many as the Hezbollah fighters beyond the Litani, and then see what happens from there. But I don't anticipate that they want to occupy ground. They don't want to own that ground. They want to push Hezbollah back, then they want to get back to Israel.
And they have said that they don't want to sort of be there occupying for months and months and months. I do want to sort of go into this regional map and just look at some of the places that Israel has struck, because it's not just Lebanon. You have Lebanon, you have Syria, you have Yemen. When you look at this map, there is that big fear of a regional war. And of course, you have had the Houthis firing on Israel as well. What do you make of all this, as the Biden administration has said we have to get a ceasefire? Now they're talking about a ceasefire with Hezbollah, with trying to stop this incursion into Lebanon. What is your takeaway on all this as to where this goes from here?
Yeah, Sarah, make a little green check mark up on Tehran. Israel has been very successful going after, and they killed the political leader. There you go, the political leader of Gaza. So what we're seeing is Israel's got an immense capacity to reach and operate on these, what we call multiple lines of effort. I mean, you've just described it so very well on the map. The challenge of a much larger Mideast conflict rests with the leadership in Tehran. What are they going to do next? We haven't seen that directly, right? We've seen it through the proxies. Proxies now have been damaged. All three of those big ones have been damaged. However, if you look at the Shia arc from Tehran all the way down into Damascus, you've got terrorist organizations that are linked to Tehran of different sorts that have the ability to strike at targets in the region. Of the United States is one of those. We still have a presence in the region. The United States is wise to say, look, we've got to chill this thing down a little bit. It's way too hot. However, Israel has a capacity to meet an objective that they've never been able to meet before, and the world has acquiesced to this form of terrorism. Something has to be done now.
Well, we will see how this goes in the coming days. Major General James Spider Marks, thank you so much for your great analysis this morning. I really appreciate you coming on.
What else have we heard from the IDF today about this operation?
Well, they're putting some meat on the bone here as to what exactly they're trying to accomplish with what they're describing as limited ground operations, raids, which of course implies not a permanent presence there, going after essentially firing positions where Hezbollah rather has been firing into northern Israel. Admiral Hagari, he described exactly what they did in one of these villages along the border just a short time ago.
During these operations, IDF special forces entered into Hezbollah compounds in dozens of locations along the border with Israel, collected intelligence, dismantled Hezbollah's weapons and terrorist infrastructures. Our soldiers entered Hezbollah's underground infrastructures, exposed Hezbollah's hidden weapon caches, and seized and destroyed the weapons, including advanced Iranian-made weapons.
To be clear, Hagari was describing raids that took place not just in the last 24 hours, but over previous weeks as well. I think with the intention of saying, listen, we've been doing this before. What we're doing now is not a massive change from that. But the fact is, if Israel's goal, and this is Bennett's stated goal, is to push Hezbollah back beyond firing range, or as far beyond firing range as they could manage from the northern border. We often talk about the Litani River. If their intention is to enforce UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which required Hezbollah to move back beyond the Litani River, we're talking 20 miles here. And we're talking many dozens of villages that you would have to clear, like we saw them do this one village right across the border in the last 24 hours. And that doesn't just imply, that would require a large number of forces over time. So that speaks to a much larger operation for a longer duration as well.
Many will say it is inconceivable that the US had no intelligence about this operation, and indeed the US have said that the Israelis have shared options, operational options, with them. Let's just have a listen to what President Biden had to say.
Than you might know, and I'm comfortable with them stopping. We should have a ceasefire now.
Later, the State Department spokesman added this.
At the same time, there are a couple other things that are true as well, which is that number one, military pressure can at times enable diplomacy. Of course, military pressure can also lead to miscalculation. It can lead to unintended consequences, and we're in conversations with Israel about all of these factors now.
What's the US perspective here? What does the US want at this point?
Well, listen, they're in conversation. It's not clear that those conversations are moving the Israeli prime minister, right? And these conversations predate the last 24 hours or last week, because we had quite similar conversations relating to Gaza. U.S. officials, right up to the president, saying you need to take more attention, for instance, to avoid civilian casualties. And yet we've seen those strikes continue and many more civilian casualties down there. So, listen, the U.S. and Israel, they certainly talk, they communicate at the military-to-military level. That said, U.S. officials and U.S. military officials I speak with are making quite clear they're not involved in this operation, much as they made quite clear they were not involved in the strike that killed Nasrallah. And there's a reason for that, right? I mean, one, this is Israel's operation. It's making a decision to move forward in a way that, frankly, the U.S. president would prefer they had tried diplomacy first. It seems, based on his public comments and all the diplomatic capital that the U.S. invested prior to this. So, listen, I mean, based on the facts and what is visible, there continues to be daylight between U.S. and Israeli officials.
Two things can be clear at the same time, or two things can be the position that the U.S. wants to take at the same time. One is that they have put out a statement saying that Israel has the right to defend itself from threats from terrorist groups. At the same time, they want to see a diplomatic solution to not just what's going on here with Lebanon, but what is going on, of course, in Gaza. I just wonder, does this Biden administration have any time to get a result, a win out of this, as far as they are concerned?
No, in the simplest terms. I mean, the election's a month away, and then the inauguration is a couple months after that, right? So you could argue that you have 3 months, right, till a new president is in place. And it seems that the Israeli prime minister has calculated that during that time period, I don't want to say free reign, but he has more reign to push forward And success informs the next decision, right? It strikes me that Israel feels, following these operations against Hezbollah, including killing Nasrallah, that he's got a track record to work on, and now he's going to move forward. But it's interesting, the statement you just said, that military action can help or perhaps enable a solution, but it can't be the solution by itself. That statement could apply to any, dozens of situations we've been in over the last 20 years, right? Whether it be with Lebanon, with Gaza, or with the West Bank, or a two-state solution. And you just haven't narrowed that gap, right? And you haven't narrowed that gap, frankly, not just between Israelis and Palestinians, but between the U.S. and this Israeli government, right? Because they've been pushing for something along those lines and stating quite publicly, but have not been able to move, it seems, the Israeli Prime Minister.
It's good to have you. Thank you.
Great to be here.